This is Overtime with Terrence and Leon, a original WRBI production presented by Bruns Gutzwiller. Choose Bruns Gutzwiller for your next construction project. Also being brought to you by FCN Bank. FCN, building stronger communities. Member FDIC. Leon, we had a great conversation with the young ladies from the Lady Bulldogs senior class. Great group. You could tell the chemistry was there, but now we get an opportunity to speak to the captain that is responsible for steering that ship.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I've been kind of waiting on this interview with Coach Taylor. Just to hear his perspective and what he's got cooking for this season.
All right. Well, we will not let our listeners wait any longer. Please welcome to the program head coach for the Lady Bulldogs, Coach Mitch Taylor. Coach, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for making my dreams come true. I've always wanted to be on a podcast as a guest, so that's pretty cool.
Look, and we wonder where Lydia gets it from.
Sure. I think she's working up on me more than the other way around, but yeah.
Well, first and foremost, how was the off season? I don't know if there's really a such thing anymore in high school athletics, but how was the off season for you?
Yeah, I mean, overall it was good. Girls got better. As far as bringing the freshman class in and kind of exposing them to some of the things we want to do, it's a big class, so it was good to get them opportunity to just kind of get their feet wet in what we expect, and also just play at a higher level in general. So yeah. I think they took advantage of that. We had some. Like our seniors talked about, we had some people missing time. Allie got hurt in June, Allie Peters. And so it was kind of weird. We rarely had seniors on the court the whole time. Sophie rolled her ankle early June and she was out like 2 weeks, which is like, we just play a lot of games in that time. So it kind of forced some of our juniors and sophomores to like step up in a leadership role on the court. So that was good to see. And I think that's helped us in ways now that we have, most of the seniors back. Those sophomores and juniors feel a lot more comfortable being out on the floor and just playing with confidence. So, overall it's gone well, outside of, Allie getting injured and Lydia not being able to be with us the whole summer. But, overall things were trending in the right direction. I was happy with the way they played.
So Coach, right now you're 2 weeks in. What do you see is going to be different about this team than your past teams?
I think the last 2 years I spent a lot of time talking about, the expectations I have and the standards I have. And I really had to enforce those and, repeat myself a lot in that area, just as far as this is what the standard has to be. And everyone was trying to get to that standard. And I think with this group of seniors, especially, like they've been under me for 2 years. They saw me as a JV coach when they were freshmen, and they just get it. And it's kind of filtered through them now. I don't have to be the one to speak up so much and say, hey, this is what we expect. This is how we do things. They have taken that and they talked about it, on their own, but they're setting the pace every practice. They're bringing the energy. They're communicating on the court. It's not things I have to emphasize as much anymore because they're doing it and the other girls, follow suit.
You got somebody like Sophie Gazelle, Coach, who is super athletic. And everybody always expects the most from probably Sophie. You get a lot from Allie, but for some reason, Sophie gets that put on her shoulders, it seems. What have you seen from her this year that's been better and different than the past?
Ooh, yeah, I think a lot of things. I wish I had Sophie's athleticism. I mean, she's so athletic. The things she's able to do, like just watching her play volleyball, how high she gets above the net, those types of things. And like, in basketball, it translates in many different areas, defensively, offensively. I think a lot gets thrown on her, like, as you said. And I think she's starting to realize that she can bear that weight. I think the last few years she was kind of hesitant. She didn't want to overstep on her teammates, I don't know if I would say confidence, but she didn't want to overstep and take anything away from her teammates.
Right.
Even as like a freshman, watching her play varsity as a freshman, she was kind of put in a role to facilitate and create for people. She has great vision. She sees the court really well. She anticipates and reads things, reads different actions well. So like, I think she's so much more comfortable in her own skin on the court now, and she knows she can bear that weight a little bit. So I think she's looking to, really exceed the expectations, whether it's whoever's putting it on her, and we expect a lot from her as a coaching staff this year. But I think she's like up for the task now. I think she's really comfortable with who she is as a player, and she knows her strengths and how to use them on the court.
I mean, you got these girls have been under you. These girls have played varsity for you for 3 years. This is their 3rd year, correct?
Yep.
What's your expectation of them being girls that have been there since you started?
I think my biggest expectation is first communication and just being vocal leaders. And that's something we've had conversations at different times the last 2 years. Allie and Sophie were captains last year. Just trying to emphasize how a player-led team has such a higher ceiling than a coach-led team. And I think they're starting to see that because they talked about how practice has been different, and it's because of them. They have made that difference this year. So I hope they continue to see that. And, as we start to play games and, we got a scrimmage in 2 days, how that will translate to the court. And I feel like, and they already said it, I don't want to repeat things they've already said, but we feel like we're in a much better position at the start of the year right now. Like we're ready to go,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas last year, it felt like it took a couple weeks before things started to gel.
Yeah. Coach, we're recording this podcast as part of our series celebrating 50 years of women's basketball in the state of Indiana. And you briefly touched on it. You were the JV coach. You saw these group of seniors as freshmen.
Yeah.
But when that varsity coaching job opened up and you said, I want that, what was it that made you want to make the leap? And more importantly, what was it that you felt like you could bring to the program?
So you're going to make me rant, I think. Coach Garrett is a big role model and just a mentor of mine.
Mm-hmm.
He taught me a lot about being humble and accepting your role on a team and understanding that, being part of a team, it's bigger than any, individual motivation or individual goal you have. And it probably took me longer than it should have when I was a player to really come to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I got a job back at Batesville, I had a conversation with him. He said, hey, the girls' side, like they need somebody. And, if I was you, this is a great opportunity as a young coach to get your foot in the door and see what happens. So I took his advice and I went with it, and being at this, I used to coach at Brownstown Central at much lower levels, but being there and seeing the girls' side to the boys' side, they had a really competitive girls program over there. And I kind of felt like I had gleaned some things from their coaches. And, I felt like my personality might fit girls a little bit better. So I gave it a try. And then, when the job opened up, I applied and, the way it worked out, I got the job. I don't necessarily think that, I thought I was going to get it after applying, but it was something I always aspired to do. And I wanted it. So I had to take advantage of the opportunity. And the way things kind of worked out, they asked me to be the coach at some point and I was all about it. So I think my personality is one thing, but also I've been so fortunate to just be under great coaches,
right?
Learn a lot from them. Coaches talk about this all the time. Like, it's not like I'm not reinventing the wheel. It's stuff I was taught by coaches that coached me, that I coached under. And I'm just trying to bring the winning things they taught me to the girls basketball program at Batesville.
Yeah. So coach, right now it's year 3. What do you wish you knew in year 1 that you now know?
Less is more.
Yeah.
I think there's a tendency for me to just kind of talk about too many things.
Right.
And it really, it applies to practice and whether it's a timeout or practice or, halftime locker room, less is more. Like, emphasize the things you want to see and they'll follow up and find a way to do those things better.
One of the first questions I asked your seniors, I took them back to the sectional championship last year. against Greensburg. And I made note of it that night, and I thought it was interesting. When the game was over, 0-0 on the clock, Greensburg gets the victory, and they really wasn't a whole lot of celebration. It was more matter of fact than anything else. It was, yeah, this is what we expected, and they just kind of went off the court. Not a whole lot of fanfare. And I asked them in that moment, what did that feel like? How did you feel seeing them just kind of walk off like this was no big deal? And on the flip side of it, your season came to an end. For you as a coach, what was that moment like?
Yeah, I mean, it's crushing just to lose when you're so close to, you're in the championship game. You had the opportunity. We felt like we came out and played really well in the first half. We just weren't good enough on offense. And that was kind of like a reflection of our season. When we couldn't turn teams over and we couldn't get out in transition, we struggled at times. So, seeing it was almost like they expected it,
Yeah.
I mean, to reflect on it, like they won the mental game in that scenario. Marley kind of talked about the mental game with some of her responses. They won it there. They came in, they've seen success as they grew up. They saw a team go to the state final when they were probably middle schoolers or, fifth or fourth graders. Mm-hmm. And over there right now, it's just something they expect to do. They expect to win, and they hadn't done it that senior class now for them. They hadn't done it the first 2 years. And, I still remember as a JV coach when our current seniors were freshmen, they came into our building and we ran them out of it. They tried to press us and we just kind of threw it all over the place and got easy layups. And we ended up winning that game by about 20 points. And they sat in their locker room much longer than our team did. They were in the visitor locker room for probably a good 45 minutes at least. And I think for them, that was a turning point. It kind of lit a fire for them. And I'm hoping that a game like last year against Greensburg, whether it was the one on the road or the one in sectional, does the same thing for us.
You talked about some of the great coaches. You talked about Coach Garrett being a mentor to you. Who are some of the other influences amongst the coaching ranks that you draw experience from?
I have to say in other sports, not just basketball, but
sure.
My tennis coach in high school, Mike McKinney, he's still around the tennis program. He was someone that, as far as a coach goes, was one of just the most understanding individuals. He always met you where you were at, whether it was stuff going on off the court or stuff going on the court. He was there to support you, but he was also there to let you know when it's time to compete and put things aside and find a way to win. He was one of those coaches that I just could relate to really well. And I always felt like he wanted what was best for me and the team. And it wasn't because he talked about it. It was just the way he went about things and the actions he took.
Right.
So that's definitely one. I have to mention Coach Benner at Brownstown. He's the boys coach there. He's been there a long time. They just won a state championship last year in 2A. And he is one of the people that really he kind of forced me to trust my own decision-making. There were many conversations we had where I'd ask for advice and he would never tell me what to do. He would always lead it with questions. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that I've hoped to have learned from him. I really try to get the girls to think for themselves. That's something that he taught me that really has stuck with me. And he's always just someone who followed up. Anytime he made a promise or he said he would do something for someone, for a player, for a fellow coach, he always followed up. And that's something that I try to go by. And I feel like sometimes I may fall short, but when I make those mistakes, I try to own up to it and follow through the next time. So those two outside of Coach Garrett have had a huge impact on me. I just want to give a shout out, if you don't mind. Some of the other Brownstown coaches, former coach, she's currently the AD there, but Maria Conklin, she's taught me a lot about just being an educator. Coach Kevin Gwynn, he was just somebody who was always in my corner and really helped me see basketball in a different way. Marty Young, I still believe he's a varsity assistant there. He's someone that I had as a camp counselor at Hanover camp when I was a middle schooler. and I ended up on the same coaching staff as him. You know, it was probably 15 years later.
That's wild.
That was really cool to be able to work with him.
Bruins Guts Willer is the right choice for your next construction project. We strive to deliver unparalleled service to our clients by focusing on craftsmanship and quality. Our core values of integrity, professionalism, and fair pricing all but ensures our clients receive the best possible experience. Whether it's commercial construction, remodeling an existing space, or even building a luxurious home, we offer a comprehensive suite of construction management services. So before you break ground, give us a call at 812-934-2105. Bruins Guts Willer, building a better future for Southeastern Indiana for over 100 years.
You know, Leon, one of the things that I like most about working and living in Batesville, it's the community. Batesville has a little something for everyone, and FCN Bank is the exact same way. Whether it's my personal or business needs, FCN offered me an array of banking products and services that would fit my every banking need. Don't take my word for it. You should check it out yourself at www.fcnbank.com. FCN Bank, building stronger communities. Member FDIC.
Talk about coaches and mentors and people you look up to and people you've learned stuff from. You got to tell me the dynamic of what it's been like to have your dad on your staff, of your first head coaching job at a high school for girls basketball.
Yeah, I think I'll say this. It's evolving year to year too. I think we've learned a lot about each other just being in this setting that we didn't know before.
Right.
Because we're really peers at this point. And at times I'm like his boss, which is weird. To like, you know, my entire staff, they're all older than me. So I think, you know, I've grown from it and learned how to approach things with them in a productive way. But you know, almost everyone on my staff has had more basketball experience than I have. So it's nice to lean on them. I don't want to go away from Leon's question. I'm not trying to deflect.
No, not at all. You good.
One of the more fun things with my dad is I've seen him grow as a person through basketball. He coached me in youth league. You know, he was my parent through all of it, playing in the Batesville boys basketball program. And he himself, I've seen it. He's grown so much as a person. He's so patient with the girls, and he does his best, kind of the same way I talked about Coach McKinney, to meet them where they're at and be supportive. Yeah. And I think as an assistant coach, he's got great qualities. Just to, you know, he's willing to speak up to me and tell me when I'm wrong. We're both kind of the same in that way. We don't want to admit when we're wrong. But having him on my staff, like, really keeps me humble because he'll let me know when I'm wrong, whether I want to hear it or not. So that's kind of a good aspect of our relationship.
Okay, so because of that, I got to ask the question.
Yeah.
And we talked to a football coach in the beginning of the football season about this with the dad being around. What happens when he tells a player something and you're like, that's wrong?
What happens?
How do you respond to that?
Okay, so I mean, I just tell him my side, you know, and I think the third year it gets easier every year because we start to, you know, he gets a feel for how I want things presented, I guess, you know, and I mean, when we have those conversations, it's never personal, you know,
right.
Like we both understand, like we come out on the other side and it's fine, but I just tell him how I feel about it, and he lets me know, you know what, you're right, or you know what, Mitch. No, you should feel this way about it. So I try to see his side of the story. But
do you correct him immediately?
I'll say this. He does a great job of like not overstepping in the middle of practice.
Yeah, good.
So he does a great job of that. But he will let me know, like, hey, Mitch, like, don't we want to do it this way? Or, hey, Mitch, don't we want to see this from our guards or this from our post players? So he's usually very good at being cautious as far as like just saying it in front of the team. But when we're in the coach's office, like sometimes middle of the game, we get to the locker room and he is itching to tell me something that, like he wants to make sure I see or I hear before we make adjustments going into the second half.
So the girls talked about it a little bit in terms of their goals individually as well as the team. And I know as coach, you've got your list of goals for the squad, but I want to go beyond the goals, right? Of course you want to win conference. Of course you want to win the Ripley County tournament and win a sectional. We get that. But beyond all of that, and let's forget those things for a second. Forget about wins, forget about losses. At the end of this season, you will be able to look yourself in the mirror and say it was a success if what happens? What is it going to, what things need to be, what things need to happen for you to look back on and say it was a successful season?
Yeah, I think, you get, when you coach, even when you're a fan or you're a parent of a player, it's easy to really just think about the end result. And I think one thing that I've been learning from coaches that I talk to, coaches that I look up to, it's just really getting the girls to fall in love with the process of just finding a way to get better every single day. Whether it's been a bad day at school, a good day at school, a mediocre day. I think it's really easy, especially when you're young, to only think about what the result is, and that's it. And if the result isn't what it should be, then it's a complete disappointment. And I'm hoping that with this group, we really don't focus on results. We don't focus on if the jump shot went in. We focus on, did you have the right footwork? Were your hips down? Were your hands in the right place? We don't focus on, did we get a stop? It'd be, okay, were we in the right position? Were we talking on defense? Were we being aggressive when we should have been? There's going to be things in a basketball game or a basketball season that are out of your control. And I really hope that the girl, I'm trying to reinforce getting them to fall in love with the day-to-day, the process of getting better. And then if we can leave our best out on the court, regardless of the result, you're going to be able to live with it. And you're going to be happy of what you left behind. And we want it to be a win. That's the goal always. And we're going to do everything we can to win every game, every time we step on the court. But it becomes a little hindering to only focus on the result.
Sure.
It's hard to grow when you're in that mindset.
Coach, when you talk about falling in love with the process, that process kind of includes the off season. For the past 2 weeks, who would you say you looked at and said, she's really fallen in love with the process?
Yeah, I would say Marley's one. That wouldn't necessarily be a surprise. It's something I saw in her from her sophomore to junior year. And the fact that she had just had such a setback, she spoke to it a little bit. It was difficult for her to just not be able to be out there and do and get better. She was just trying to get back to where she was before her injury. And, she's someone that puts in as many hours outside of the practice as I've ever seen anyone. I'd also like to shout out Kaylin Kathman, because she's someone that while we were recording the podcast earlier with the girls, she was downstairs in the gym getting shots up still. Wow. So, she's someone that she just loves basketball. She's all basketball. She puts so much time in outside of practice hours on her own. And ultimately, she's someone I can use as an example and say, these results happen for her because of all this extra time she puts in on her own. So I think those two really, really stand out.
Coach, a lot of people have heralded this current sophomore class, and they have a lot of expectations of that sophomore class. What can we expect to see from that crew this year? I
think, and Kaylin got a lot more experience than, Sydney and Maddie and Nora and Ellie, but just a confidence from them. Yeah. They've been under me for a year. They know what I expect. I would say all three of them, Maddie, Sydney, and Nora, these first couple weeks, just the intensity they play with, the confidence they're playing with, it's steps above where they were last year. And I think they feel a lot more comfortable out in a varsity game with the pace, with the strength and the physicality of other teams. So I really expect all those girls to have breakout years. And, I'm excited to see what they can do, because when it comes to athleticism, quickness, all those things, they've got it all. And it's just kind of putting it all together and getting better and finding ways to help the team win.
So when you put those two classes together, this heralded sophomore class that have huge expectations, that you have huge expectations for, and the senior class, knowing that it's their last go around, do you as the head coach feel any amount of pressure, for lack of a better term, to make their basketball dreams come true this year?
I mean, yeah, I think pressure, there's been quite a few coaches to talk about this at the NBA and NFL level recently.
Yeah.
It's been funny to hear some of their responses, just the way they want to approach it. Some of it's kind of just a game with the media, and other guys just speak candidly. And I've always felt like that's how I've always wanted to be that way. No one can put more pressure on you than yourself.
Right.
That's what I believe in when it comes to pressure. So am I going to, hear the outside noise as far as, people talking about what they should be able to do and what they can do, and if it doesn't happen, it's a failure? Sure, I'm going to hear all those things. But if I let that affect the way I coach, I feel like I'm only going to do a worse job. Yeah. So I try to not worry about those things, focus on what my players need from me, what they expect from me as a coach, being my best every day, no matter what my day was like, trying to set that example for them to be locked in and be ready. And hopefully, we're not really thinking about the pressure. We're not thinking about the outside noise. We're thinking about one possession at a time. How can we win this possession? And it's something that I've learned from, basketball over the years, but coaching tennis even more so. You really have to focus on what's right in front of you. And if you worry about the last possession, if it was a turnover or a bad play, whatever, it's going to turn into 3, 4, 5 bad possessions in a row. So myself, I try to get the girls to think that way. Yep. And thinking that way myself, I feel really relieves all the pressure. Mm-hmm. It's just outside noise at a certain point. You got to go out there and execute and play and be worried about one possession at a time.
So, Coach, when you talk about the program, you've had to add coaches, because of whatever reason. Tell us about the new coaches and what they bring to the table.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to everybody. We talked about my dad a little bit. Coach Hughes, Joanna Hughes, this is her third year with me. So she came in with me, was my JV coach. She had been at South Dearborn for years and coached there and taught at Dillsboro Elementary. She's great. She is great. Same way my dad. She's not afraid to tell me when I'm wrong either. It's nice to have voices in my locker room to tell me, like, hey, maybe you should look at it this way. And I think Joanna does a great job of that. She gives kind of a flip side. I think at times I might be a little too new school, just kind of thinking about basketball. And I think she kind of keeps our staff grounded, just kind of bringing ultimately we got to do the simple things, the fundamental things that have been in basketball always. So she does a great job of that. And she does a great job of just, as the JV coach, really focusing on getting those girls to be ready to play varsity at some point in their careers. Carmen Pride's another one. She came on last year. She'll be on staff this year. She's one I know wants to be here all the time. And she has so much basketball knowledge. She played at Jacksonville and she played D1 basketball at University of Evansville. And the girls really respond to her. They know she's got a lot of credibility. She works with a lot of our post players, just getting them fine-tuned, working on things. But she's one that, so much knowledge about the game, so much experience, more experience than I've ever had as a player. And she's always looking to see things, just from a perspective of a higher level. We're really trying to challenge the girls to play at a high level. And I think Carmen has a lot of knowledge to bring to the table in that regard. Coach Hilton, So we have a new coach on staff that's replacing Ben Seifert. His name's Zach Hilton. He's someone that I actually met playing pickup basketball at the Y. That's how we met.
He shipped you out of your shoes?
Yeah, he's done that a couple times. He's also backed me down in the post and let me know what it is. So he's someone that I've just gotten to know in that way. I've really only known him for about 6 or 7 months, but he's married to someone who's from the area, and he lives in New Point. He's just interested in getting involved, and he loves coaching. He's not a teacher, but he's someone that is just incredibly just a logical thinker, really just patient and very careful with how he comes across, and he's very aware of himself. And I think the girls have really responded to him so far. And he's brought a lot to the table as far as what we're trying to do offensively this year. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited to see kind of how that works out for us these first few weeks.
Cool. Well, sounds like you got a winning squad. And I know, Coach, you've had a full day practice and whatnot, and you still took time out to hang out with us. That, sir, is greatly appreciated.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, of course. Hey, like I said, this is a dream come true. So if you ever want me back on, just let me know.
Oh, don't worry. We'll be coming back. It's your season now.
Sounds good.
So, Coach, we like to end our programs the exact same way. This one will be no different. We call it our one-hitter quitter. That's where I'm going to ask you one question, hard-hitting in nature, and yes, you have to answer it. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. I've actually been asking this to all the coaches that we talk to, because I'm fascinated with their answers. Your phone rings tomorrow and it's the Indiana Fever, and they want you to be their next coach. They say to you, "Oh, look, we got to keep Caitlin Clark, but we'll do whatever else you want to do." How do you build a team around Caitlin Clark to make the Fever championship ready?
This is an interesting question. So in this hypothetical, if it were a realistic situation,
yes,
I'd say no. I'd say I'm the head coach of the Lady Bulldogs.
But if you were
to talk hypotheticals,
okay, I'm out. I can't.
Come on, man. Look, I can't.
Dude.
I cannot.
All right. Let me in a hypothetical situation.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you, I love the girls too.
Look,
but if they tell me I got Caitlin Clark on my team,
look,
I gotta go.
Oh, yeah.
Leon, he didn't see all the commas in the check.
Possibilities are endless with a player like that on your team. Possibilities are endless. I think she's someone who is incredible at making reads. I mean, she's a great passer. Everyone talks about her shooting, but the vision she has to create for others is like what really separates her. There's a lot of girls in the league who can shoot the same way she does.
Sure.
Sabrina Ioannowski's won, and they just won a championship. But her vision is what really makes her just stand apart, I think, in the way she can create. I mean, you have her and Aaliyah Boston. I would keep Boston 100%. I really like what their roster has, or what their roster has to bring to the floor. But I do think that they need a long wing who can defend better. I don't look at stats too much with the Fever and WNBA, but from what I see when I watch them, it just seems like they need like lengthier athletic wings that can limit the other teams from the 3-point line a little bit more. Right. And if you have that around her, because they're going to be effective offensively. I mean, they have the tools. They could run flex offense and find a way to be effective, right? But as far as like what their defense needs, I think they need some long wings. I would try to get some long wings to, and I can't remember her name now.
Mitchell.
Blonde, plays for them. Either way. And I know you're trying to cut me off here.
No,
that's what I would do. Lexi Hull. See, I think she's a player that could really step into that role. I just don't really know what her ceiling is. I felt like at the end of the year, she played really well for them.
Okay.
All right. That's good. That's good.
So they got to be better defensively.
But if the phone rang tomorrow, Coach, quit playing. quit playing, dude.
I mean, that'd be a hard opportunity to pass up, without a doubt.
Dude, look, you would pack up your whole U-Haul before you even called Helvey. Your U-Haul would be fully packed, and you would be on 465. Where you're, oh yeah, let me call Brian real quick.
I don't know. I prefer small town. The city's a little much for me. Too much traffic.
All right, man. I'll accept that. I'll accept that answer. But again, with all sincerity, Coach, I really do appreciate you taking the time, man, and coming and hanging out with us. Listen, this is one of the squads, Batesville schools, that I'm most looking forward to see play this year, this next season. And then after just chopping it up with your seniors a few seconds ago, there's no doubt you got a fun squad, fun group of girls, and I hope that translates out on the floor.
Oh, I definitely will. And the chemistry thing they touched upon right away, it's a really fun group to be around. I mean, on the court, we're all business, and they've really shown it the first 2 weeks. And off the court, they just make it fun. And it's why, girls want to play. So it's cool.
Good deal. Good deal.
Well,
all right, Coach. Thanks again. Go Dogs.
Thanks, guys.
And that's going to do it for this one. We'd like to thank all of our sponsors for making this show possible. They include Bronze Gutzwiller, the right choice for your next construction project, and FCN Bank, building stronger communities, member FDIC. Also, we'd like to thank our friends of the program. They include Margaret Mary Health, S&B Driving School, and Country 103.9 WRBI. And as always, subscribe, like, rate, and review. And remember, be a friend and tell a friend about Overtime with Terrence and Leon.